Okay, so now that we have set up our file, we've placed our image in there, it's time to start actually making our piece that we want to make, right? And so the main thing that you want to know now is that we always want to be aware of what we're working on and where, and make sure we have the right things selected. So that's where this black arrow tool will be a big deal. That's also where like having your layers open, I think, really helps me. So right now, you remember we have our sketch in the background, kind of 50% opacity put back there just as a guide. And so we can now go ahead and start building the actual like image itself, the graphic itself. But again, you want to make sure you have this sketch layer locked because it's the pain when you accidentally select that object, the background. You don't really want to do that. So what you want to do is, once we have the new sketch layer created, you could just come all the way down here, and there's this little button that looks kind of like a square with a plus on it, and we'll just make a new layer. So again, layer 2, and sometimes I'll label these, like just because sometimes I get confused about where I'm working. So you can have a million layers if you want to, but they just help you organize stuff. So you'll notice that now, if I'm on sketch, this layer, it won't let me select anything. I can't do anything. But layer 2, as long as I have this one selected and it's not locked, right, I can actually, I can start building. So now the question is, of course, like, how do you build stuff? Like, what do you do? So Illustrator and all Adobe products, at least most of them, are really set up as simulations of old analog graphic arts kind of stuff. So like Photoshop is an analog simulation of what people used to do in a dark room. So they used to stand there in this dark room and manipulate images and composite them together. Premiere is a simulation of what happened in an editing room with like a razor blade and film, right? When they used to edit films, like with 35 millimeter film. Illustrator is kind of set up to simulate like an illustrator's board, right? Where you might work with a lot of collaged elements or cut out shapes or big pieces of like type and that kind of stuff. And so basically all of the tools over here will often reference that, right? They'll often have a reference to like a analog tool. I just think this is sort of fun and interesting. But the main thing to know is that Illustrator is set up on vectors. So when you create an object in Illustrator, you're creating mathematical vectors, these mathematical points that the software is saying connect with this and do this thing to that object. So it's pretty cool, pretty fun. It's also historically a really low memory. It doesn't require a lot of memory, like a lot of RAM or a lot of processing power to build objects out of this. So it's kind of like, I always think of it like your layers are these big glass, like kind of big sheets of glass, and you're arranging stuff on each one of those sheets of glass, and you're creating them by creating these big sharp-edged shapes is the best way I can put it. So the thing I would suggest you probably start with is to go over here to the to this thing, and probably it'll have the rectangle tool, but it might have the ellipse or something. But if you click and hold any of these little tools that have the little tiny like sort of triangle pointing down to the right, it means there's more junk underneath that tool. So if you click and hold, you'll see all the stuff. And let's just make a rectangle. So we will click, we got the rectangle tool selected. We will click and drag, and we're gonna try and like make the guy's shirt, right? So, okay, if I do that, there you go. And so you'll see now I have an object selected, and if I click off of it, it's just gonna be a white square with black lines. And again, the black arrow tool lets me select that object. So I can grab the object and now I can move it around, right? And anything I do, or any place I want to put this, I can scooch it over here, I can put it there, I can resize it by clicking on the handles that are on the corners or on the edge, these little white handles, and just move it around. So what this is an object that's got these mathematical points. So it's got these things alongside the alongside the math, and then the software is saying fill it with white, the color white, and then put a black stroke around it, a 1-point black stroke. So if you want to change any of those things, all you have to do is, just make sure, again, select the object, Then go up here, and this is where, again, this set of little tools up at the top lets you do a lot of stuff up here. And if I wanted to change the color, I could click here and just click in the white, and I'll get a whole bunch of swatches, or I can click on the drop down. There's all these other ways to get to it, and I can select a color. So let's say I want like that to be kind of a light blue of some sort, so and maybe like that. Okay, so that has made the fill, so we call that the fill of the vector object, the light blue. And let's say I want my stroke to be you know, some other color, so I'll go with a red stroke. I can do that, and then you can see now it's got the red line around the edges. And if I want it to get bigger, as long as I have it selected, you got to make sure you have the object selected, I can go here to stroke and I can make it the stroke bigger, right? So I can make the stroke bigger, and I can, again, if I keep messing with the stroke right now, nothing's happening, right? Because I don't have my object selected. So you got to make sure you hit it with the black arrow tool, select it, and then you can change the stroke. And there are all these options under stroke, like you can do, there's just a ton of like crazy things you can add, like you can change around what the stroke looks like. There's also things like you can, you know, add a brush, kind of a fake brush mark. You can make it look like arrows. You can change like all these different options. And if you click under these, you'll see there's just a million of brush libraries that you can add in here if you want to. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but let's just leave it like, you know, we'll just go with like the standard basic right now. Okay, so I've got a 1 point stroke applied, blue. Let's say you're like, well, that's great, but I don't really want the stroke on there. Well, okay, you could go over here, and if you click on this, there's this little universal none sign, right? If you click that, that'll get rid of the stroke. So now it's just a blue square that floats. So again, imagine this piece of glass with you cut a blue rectangle out of some blue paper, and now you've got it sitting on there, and you can move it wherever you would like to. Again, this is referencing the way that they used to do lots of different kinds of things with illustration, right? Okay, that doesn't really look like a shirt, but I got a blue chunk there, right? Let's say we wanted to do this person's head. Well, probably the best way to do that would be to grab the ellipse tool, right? So that's going to make more of a circle. And if I click and drag on that, I can make kind of a head shape, right? And then I can drop it, and I can grab my my tool here, and I can like scooch it around and try to get it in the right position. And you know, that'll give me, like, I can kind of put it over the sketch to build the sketch around it. So that is the basics of how you make objects and shapes. It's just you can build them. So you've got stars, you have polygons, you got all kinds of stuff here, right? So that's the basics of how you build tools. And so the black arrow tool, again, grabs it and moves it, and you just grab the whole object. So if I don't want the person's face blue, I could change that color by clicking over here and picking a, you know, like a different color. Maybe I'd go with like kind of a light orange or something like that. And then you can also, if you want to, there are all these different kinds of swatches that you can choose from. So there's a lot of places you can go to like alter this. So let's just say we're gonna give him an orange face. So there he goes, right? Okay, so if I turn off my sketch, so if I just turn the eyeball off underneath, you can see that this is what's there, and that I can turn the sketch on and off as much as I need to, since it's just a guide. All right. So, but let's say, you know, I want to kind of alter this a little bit. That's where the white arrow tool comes in really handy. So again, remember the black arrow tool selects the whole objects and lets you do stuff with it. The white arrow tool, if you select that, that will let you pick just the path. So I'm going to zoom in a little here. So these paths, again, since these are vectors, they're made up out of these Bezier curves, they're called. So this is the mathematical point, and then the software is applying this Bezier curve, saying move the line from here to here as this point connects to that one. So the white arrow tool allows you just to grab one of these points and you can stretch it, right? So I can make this person look like they have an egghead if I want to. I can also click over here on this anchor, and I can grab one of these handles and twist it, and you'll see that it morphs the shape, right? So I could do the same thing on this side. I can grab this one and pull it in. You should play with this. There's a lot of choices that you can make that will change the way that your shape works. And so it's a little more complex shape now, made out of just 4 points again. So just the 4 points, but I've tweaked the Bezier curves to like do a lot of crazy stuff to it. So that's what the white arrow tool does. So if I wanted to, I could select my rectangle here. I could grab the white arrow tool. I could just make sure I have one of these selected. You can see it's selected because it's filled in and the other ones are white. And if I just delete it, all of a sudden now I have like a triangle, right? Instead of a full square, right? But all I've done is deleted the point. So again, and then if you hit Command Z or undo, it'll undo those things. But I can do stuff here, like if I just grab that and tweak it, I can actually change or adjust this the shape. So it kind of allows me just to click and drag on the edge of a shape and like move it around, right? So I can really go crazy with altering it now. So the black arrow does the whole shape. I can move that around. The white arrow does just points, and I can, you know, play with that. So there's just a lot of different things built in there. So click and drag, there you go. If you ever need to, you can just click and drag like that, and it'll help you grab the point. So that is the basics of creating a shape and using the black and the white arrow tool along with stroking and filling an object. And of course I can go back and change this anytime I want. So if I'm like, I don't really want it that color blue, I can make it gray. I can make it you know, red, and it'll change it. Again, double click the hand to see what I've actually got, turn off the background, and there you go. So you basically have to imagine you're kind of cutting out shapes and collaging them together to create your playing card composition for this exercise. So I hope this helps. I'll show you some other tricks and tips as we keep going along.